Hello and welcome to the Daily's Double Shot. It's a brand new year and I am the brand new assistant producer Colin Farley. This week we've got a whole host of new staff members and we'll be premiering our very first daily documentary entitled The Box. That'll be coming up later in the episode, but first...
Additional questions were added to the UW application asking potential students if they had ever been convicted of or have charges pending against them for violent felonies or sexual offenses.
And I'm just vehemently, totally opposed to it.
I do believe, and know anecdotally already, that the presence of the box, no matter how carefully constructed, does have a chilling effect for people.
Ooh, what is that? Try to be nice.
Yeah.
I'll see you there. Okay.
Varisha Khan reports on the recent solidarity movements following the Charlie Hebdo attacks in Paris and the implication it's had on our understanding of free speech.
I'm Varisha Khan, and as you can see behind me, members of UW and the surrounding community have come together to show their support and solidarity of the Je suis Charlie movement.
This gathering looked like the many that have been taking place around the world since the office of French satirical magazine Charlie Hebdo was the site of a tragic shooting that resulted in the 12 deaths on January 7th. The Charlie Hebdo shooting seems to have been sparked by outrage over the magazine's publication of images of Muhammad, the Prophet of Islam, which are seen as offensive to Muslims and were used to justify the targeting of the magazine's cartoonists. However, Muslim clerics and activist groups all over the world have been condemning this act of violence. The global response has been a series of solidarity vigils for the victims, as well as the defense of free speech, marked by the global trending hashtag Je suis Charlie, or I am Charlie. All over the world, and including UW, people have been taking time out of their day to gather and mourn the loss of innocent lives and to stand up for the freedom of speech which the Charlie Hebdo magazine expresses. We asked the organizers of UW's Solidarity Gathering for their thoughts on the event.
It's France, it's our country, it's about freedom of speech, and Je suis Charlie was actually, I first started on Twitter, and it's kind of like everybody's in it together to support the victims from what happened and to remember their legacy. And so Je suis Charlie is just so that everybody's Charlie Hebdo right now.
It's a terrible tragedy.
I just feel so upset for the whole office of people.
It's important to remind myself and remind everybody else that what makes us all human is this opportunity to live this life and experience it in our own way, and nobody should have the right to just take that away.
We were riding on campus yesterday to advertise for the event. Chalk everywhere to try and get people to come to the event, and we were asked by random students what it was all about. I think they didn't hear about it or didn't know. They were asking us who Charlie was. Well, unless you've done your research on them, if you're American, you probably haven't heard of them before the event. I'm familiar with their magazine. I don't approve of the way they conduct their business, but this is about freedom of speech, so it's above all about defending other people's ideas, even though you might not agree with them.
After speaking with the UW community, it became clear that reconciling free speech with speech that incites violence is more complicated than it seems.
You agree that this is an issue of free speech?
Oh, definitely, yes. We have to be able to speak what we feel and not have, we can have people disagree, but we shouldn't have to worry about being killed.
Even though a terrible thing occurred in France, people should still be exercising their free speech, and they shouldn't let that scare them from speaking their mind.
Do you think that, here in Seattle and, even us being here currently at the UW campus, that everyone should express their freedom of speech, regardless of potential backlash?
Absolutely. I mean, freedom of speech is liberté is the first, in our French constitution on the flag.
Our investigation turned up that legally it is allowed for French print like Charlie Hebdo to mock Islam and likewise the Prophet Muhammad. But it is illegal to print anything that suggests mocking or denying the Holocaust. According to British newspaper The Telegraph, in 2009, one of Charlie Hebdo's famous cartoonists, who went by the pen name Cine, was fired from the magazine for writing a comment that was deemed anti-Semitic, saying that by marrying a high-profile Jewish heiress, the French president's son will, quote, go a long way in life.
This would include speech that would be negative in nature towards other groups or other people or other opinions and ideas. So would you, as an example, would you feel comfortable with anti-Semitic free speech being expressed around you on campus?
I believe that people have the right to their right of speech, but there are limitations. Like, you can't go around, as long as it's not something that's hateful towards other groups.
Yeah, it should not hurt the sentiments of the other group. Like, you're saying something, but it should be okay with it. You should be, if something happens to you the same way, consider yourself in that situation and imagine how would you react?
I feel like, you have the right to do it, but at the same time, no, it hurts.
I didn't like that he was just attacking them just for the sake of free speeches.
If we have speech that is designed to rile people up against another group of people, I think that that's a problem. And as a society, we should have an issue with that. As a Muslim, ultimately seeing that, killings like this are attributed to me in this way is frustrating, and that kind of takes precedence over all of the other issues. And I just, I have to come and say that no, we're all human beings, and this can't go on like this. So.
Obviously, what's going to happen after this, and there's already measures taken by the French government to counteract that, but like I said, there's going to be a wave of Islamophobia.
The thing that we need to put in the forefront of this tragedy is that we need to separate whatever these animals were, and what the Muslim community is, because I'm very worried of, aftermath now. We already seen yesterday some kebab little shops getting vandalized and things like that. So, but I also see maybe a glimpse of hope that people are getting together, especially in France and Europe, and I think throughout the world. It's amazing how people have been coming together and are sensitive to it.
Au revoir, Nathalie. Enchantée. Enchantée, Nathalie. Au revoir. Bon week-end.
Hi, I'm Alexa Teodoro, and in this week's Film Focus, we're going to take a look at Inherent Vice, directed by Paul Thomas Anderson.
It's the tail end of the psychedelic 60s, and paranoia is running the day. If it isn't Charlie Manson, it's the LAPD or the FBI or the mysterious body of something called the Golden Fang.
So what's all this now?
So the movie starts out as kind of your typical noir. We've got Doc Sportello, played by Joaquin Phoenix, and he is a local PI, and he gets this visit from his ex-girlfriend, Shasta, who he hasn't seen in a long time. She asks for his help in trying to foil a plot against her current lover, Mickey Wolfman, who is a real estate mogul, so he has a ton of money, and Mickey's current wife is trying to get him institutionalized, and that sends Doc on this journey of trying to find out more, and it just takes him down this weird road, this drug-filled road. But the plot is secondary to how the movie actually makes you feel, because you're being taken along for Doc and all his drug-addled adventures, meeting all these crazy characters. It kind of makes you feel the same confusion and almost paranoia that he is also experiencing in the movie, and so you can really empathize with him. He can be frustrating to watch just because he's lost so much of the time, but he's also very lovable. He's a detective, yes, but not conventional in any means. You know, he's got his joint in one hand and his pen and pad in the other, and I just find that hilarious. I think Joaquin Phoenix does a great job of kind of carrying the movie. It is centered around his character, and he really brings this hazy guy to life.
This is Doc Sportello. He's a private investigator.
Whoa.
Are you all right?
Am I?
Are you?
The cinematography was, in my opinion, pretty well done. It was, it's a period movie. It's set in 1970s LA, so you have that whole dreamy surf vibe, and it's set in this fictional Gordito beach, but it's just very beachy and surfy and beautifully done. I can see how, as a work of art, how legitimate and well done it is, but because I was left feeling so confused watching the movie, it kind of cultivated a little bit of frustration as a viewer, just because it moves so quickly. There's all these characters, and before you can really get a grasp on the plot fully, the next scene's already happening. So I think if you do decide to watch this movie, you kind of just have to accept the fact that the plot is secondary, and you kind of just should let it all pass by you, and that's the best way to enjoy this movie.
Choto, Kinichiro, Dozo, Moto Panakeku, Moto Panakeku, Moto Panakeku, Hai, Hai, Hai.
I'm Alexa Teodoro, and this has been Film Focus. Thanks for watching.
Working with the sports department here at the Daily, we put together a multimedia package showcasing the art and the science of basketball's most exciting move, the alley-oop.
Cool. I feel like I'm gonna break this down.
As of fall quarter 2013, every single applicant to the University of Washington has had to check or not check a box declaring whether or not they have been convicted of a felony. We wanted to get the story behind the box, so we worked with the CHID department to produce the very first Daily Doc. Check it out.
3 years ago in the winter quarter of 2012, just as classes started, the University of Washington disenrolled a student who was a level 3 sex offender. He was 1 quarter away from graduation. The following fall, additional questions were added to the UW application asking potential students if they had ever been convicted of or have charges pending against them for violent felonies or sexual offenses. The additions came as a result of meetings between the Provost and the Board of Regents, as well as other meetings between the Provost, faculty, and concerned citizens.
We got involved with the whole issue here when a lieutenant on the UW Police Department, Craig Wilson, disenrolled a student of ours. And I went back to the email. I was sitting with the law school a while ago, and he wrote the student. He said, "You have been withdrawn and are no longer a registered student for this class, effective immediately," as though he was God. And we hired lawyers and caused that situation to be remedied so that that student could go on and graduate with his degree. He had a major in physics and a minor in applied mathematics. And by the way, went on and got his master's degree in applied mathematics all here at UW. But so once we protected him protected his right to attend class here, then we sort of withdrew.
I think the situation was especially difficult to handle because of the short period of time between disclosure and when we were required by law to, figure out appropriate accommodations. They sent out a mass email to everybody on campus, which further at least made the situation worse for the students, but also created a situation where there was a fair deal of upset. I'm not sure that panic is the right word, but something akin to that among some of our students and parents. So in essence, we had a bad situation.
Then Anamari the provost started to implement this new admissions policy, and some students at the law school were offended by the new policy, and somehow they were aware of us, and they came down to our office, and their beliefs were strongly felt. They were adamantly opposed to any admissions policy change. And so we spent a lot of time with them, and we're in the midst of that, and a change.org petition started. And that came to the attention of the provost, Anamari, and 3 former prisoners, including one of the 2 who was involved in the blast email in January of 2012, and a staff member who got her psychology degree here, Shelby Shepard, and I came down, and we met with Anamari over at Gerberding Hall and in her office, and tried to stop the change in the admissions policy. And maybe we got them to moderate the changes they were looking at, but as you know, the policy went into effect anyway.
I was trying to strike the right balance between, on the one hand, creating real access, which is something that I believe very strongly in, at the same time being responsible to our students, to their parents, to a community where that in essence we have vulnerable youth. At the end of the day, to make a very long story short, we ended up deciding that we were not going to deny anybody admission because of how they answered the question. And that what we would do is instead use it to try and put together whatever kinds of safety protocols or support programs in place to make it the best environment possible for these students.
According to the provost, in the first year of the application change, 11 prospective students answered the question yes appropriately. Of those 11, 6 were admitted and are at the university. That's a 55% admissions rate compared to the average UW acceptance rate of 56%.
I should make it clear that the 5 who weren't accepted, it wasn't because of their criminal background. It was because of their GPA or something else. But I say the fact that the figures are so close, I think, would tend to show that, in fact, when I said that we didn't use the question, we didn't use the question. I'm actually hoping that, particularly as we, have a few years of data, that, we can become a bit of a model for how to do this responsibly.
Since the application change, no undergraduate students have been removed from class on the basis of their criminal history. The university has been able to identify these students upon admission and provide support for class registration and other services when requested. While the university is satisfied with the results thus far, this policy has been heavily criticized by a number of students, professors, and concerned citizens.
I have tremendous respect for what I've been told about the impulse behind creating the questions. I know that there's different, ideas about the university being responsible for its campus and responsible to its students. And I've heard also that the questions are there to help support students who might have a felony record or be registered as sex offenders, and that it's sort of in their best interest to have the university be on their side if they're admitted. So I want to say all that I hear, some of the rationales. I don't perceive those questions on the admissions form to serve any of those ends. If our end is to understand students who are coming with that history, then we could, as a university, find that out after admission. To put it on the admissions form, to me, is to have a chilling effect on the perception that the University of Washington welcomes students with those backgrounds.
And I'm just vehemently, totally opposed to it, and I think it's wrong. And the more I've thought about this since you contacted me, the more, instead of the obvious things, the more, the thing that's most concerning to me is I wonder if you're a former prisoner and this is UW's policy, whether you're even going to apply here. I mean, I don't know if you're aware of it, but I spent 5 years in federal prison, from basically 95 to 2000. And then I came out to UW, and when I applied, it was a non-issue. If it had been an issue, I don't know if I would have applied. I don't know if I would have put myself through it or not. That's my overriding concern, is if somebody's confronted with that, are they going to put themselves through all that criticism and sort of be re-sentenced or something like that.
I'm not clear that the particular questions we ask do what people say they're supposed to do. And I do believe, and know anecdotally already, that the presence of the box, no matter how carefully constructed, does have a chilling effect for people. And as far as I can tell, it's a way of producing the rhetoric of safety or the perception of safety for some people, that we have a box, in ways that don't have a lot of positive impact, but are likely to have measurable negative impact in terms of keeping people from feeling this is a welcoming campus.
And they just all want a chance. I mean, they're like desperate to have a chance that they've never had before. And we've had 5 people in 9 years recidivate. And so our success rate's like about 97%, and that speaks to the drive of these men and women. And that's probably, by the way, the core issue with what's happened here at UW is the men and women coming out of prison are so desperate and so driven to get it right that they do get it right. And they're going to be the ones on this campus who aren't breaking the rules, who aren't using drugs, who are monitored by the Department of Correction, who, if they weren't monitored, still wouldn't break rules, who are going to study their butts off, make incredibly good grades, and become really good members of society.
Every study that anyone has ever done demonstrates that higher levels of education correlates to lower rates of recidivism. College isn't just a place, for creative and intellectual exploration, but it's also kind of a gatekeeper for a lot of skills that will lead to employment. And especially with the stigma often attached to a conviction history for employment or for access to housing, college is one of the vehicles to get access to skills that might improve your chances for employment.
Criminal background questions have become increasingly common in college applications for schools across the United States. The University of Washington administration feels that their policy strikes the right balance between addressing the public concern over campus safety while at the same time maintaining their access mission. But many critics believe that asking these questions in the school application might prevent people from applying in the first place. Does requiring applicants to disclose their criminal pasts prior to admission create a safer campus, or does it add an unnecessary barrier to accessing higher education? If the university is trending in one direction, public discourse leaning to the other, this issue will continue to be an important point of contention for years to come.
that's all we've got time for this episode, but tune in 2 weeks from now, when we'll have plenty more stories from UW. Until then, you can catch up with us at dailyuw.com/doubleshot or our YouTube channel, Daily UW. Thanks for watching. This has been the Daily's Double Shot.